Hey, this is Marcus Washington, MTC Media, first episode of Full Court DMV. Look at college basketball in the Washington, D.C. area, and we will start with Georgetown and their non-conference schedule. You will notice there's an uptick in the type of opponents that they have. This is more of a resume building schedule than a win building non-conference schedule. I know people would like to see more at times, or at least some fans would, but remember now, Georgetown isn't Duke or Michigan State, Kansas. Those guys have a different tier of non-conference scheduling. So for Georgetown in year 3 of Ed Cooley, having a resume building schedule, I think it's good. I think it's on time. The two ACC opponents, UNC and Clemson, you have one on the road in Chapel Hill, you have one here at Cap One, and then Maryland, who is local, Dayton, and either Miami of Florida or BYU. And so you say, well, what's the target on that? Because you need to have a target. If you go 3-2, it has to be the right 3. So maybe you lose to UNC, but then if your 3 come against Clemson, Maryland, and BYU, or you have a loss somewhere else and the 3 wins are UNC, Clemson, BYU. It's got to be a combination. If you're going to go 3-2, it has to be the right combination of 3-2. Now, ultimately, you would like to go 4-1. Because at 4-1, what you're probably saying is either you take 2 out of the 3 with UNC, Clemson, and Maryland, and that'll get your 2. You beat Dayton, that'll get you your 3, and then hopefully, because again, I'm trying to base this on where these teams are going to be projected. Hopefully, you get BYU the next day, and then you get the 4th against BYU. So then again, your 4 wins, those are good 4 wins. And that way you have, true road win, and you have those things. Then you have some neutral court wins. And obviously this is all being based upon if these teams make it to where they should make it. Obviously UNC is in the top 5, depending where, it depends on who you talk to. Top 5 in the ACC. Clemson is around that upper middle. Maryland is around that upper middle. You have Dayton, then you have Miami and BYU. So I think probably Miami is the trouble spot. If you have to play Miami, you have to win that. I don't know how much Miami is going to help you, but Miami can hurt you. So the reason why I think that's important for Georgetown is because, look, you go 4-1 in those games. Then you go 500 and better in the Big East. And now we're talking, because the committee, and I'm not going to go too far into this because it's just going to get me off on another tangent, but the committee has been very kind to the SEC and the Big Ten in the amount of teams that they're getting in each year. So that puts more pressure on the Big East. And I think at times they end up putting the nice way of putting this is they end up scrutinizing your resume a little bit more in the Big East than you do in the Big Ten and in the SEC. And again, I know a lot of that's political, but that's where Georgetown is. So 4-1, 3-2 in those games, and then over 500 in the Big East. And now we're talking about, hey, let's discuss where things fall on Selection Sunday. Then, another good news for Georgetown this past weekend, Alex Constanza committed to Georgetown. He is a consensus top 20 player in his class. So Georgetown certainly are making a jump in the type of players they are getting in recruiting too, and that's certainly a hats off to Ed Cooley and his staff. When we come back, we will take a look at Buzz Williams and what's going on out in College Park. This is Marcus Washington with Full Court DMV.
Hey, this is Marcus Washington over here at MTC Media and Communications. I know that you know me from all of my sports coverage, especially college basketball. But MTC Media and Communications is so much more than just sports coverage. We provide UX UI services, content management, data analytics, accessibility, Section 508, website management, content creation, and so much more. So be sure that you hit us up with all of your needs so we can provide you a top-notch service that you deserve.
Hey, welcome back to the show. Look, when Kevin Willard left for Villanova, I know there were some fans out in College Park who seemed to be more worried about Maryland getting a big name coach and not necessarily a coach that fits. I think for what we've seen in Maryland of late, Buzz Williams is a coach that fits, even if he's not going to be there for 10 years and he's not a 10-year solution. So we'll be having this conversation somewhere down the road. Now, right now, Maryland, there is a question of health in their 82-81 exhibition game, 82-81 exhibition win over UMBC. They only played 8 players, so they have been banged up a bit. And, on opening night against Coppin State, we'll see how many of those players play. Obviously, they want those players healthy on Friday night when they have to face Georgetown, which is a much bigger game. I'm sure some of those players can sit out a game against Coppin State. No shade to Coppin State, but that's just the reality of it. But a couple of players certainly jumped out in that win over UMBC. Freshman Darius Adams, who comes in with a splendid reputation when it comes to shooting the ball, and he can shoot it. Even though he did struggle that night, he did find his way to the free throw line. Sometimes it's harder to get younger guys to realize that, but he did realize that himself. He ended up shooting 13 free throws. He drew 7 fouls. So that's a positive. That's a guy who's saying, okay, I know my strength might not be working right now or might not be where I wanted to be in this particular game, but there's other ways I can contribute on that side of the floor. And then senior Pharrell Payne, he was 9 for 12 from the floor, and he drew 9 fouls. So why is this important? Because that game against Georgetown, both teams are going to be physical. Both coaches are physical. There's probably going to be some whistles in there, and there's probably going to be some free throws. So that game, I'm going to tell you right now, that game might have over 55 free throw attempts. And you might say, wow, that's really large. I'm telling you, depending on how that game is officiated, the free throw line might be the deciding factor in that. But with Buzz Williams, getting back to why Buzz is a good hire for Maryland, Buzz is a no-frills guy. And I know that Maryland, probably since Gary has left, has only hired no-frills guys. Mark Turgeon was a no-frills guy. Kevin Willard certainly was a no-frills guy. And Buzz, but I think what Buzz does preach a little bit. He preaches toughness in a different type of way. You're going to see some stuff. You're going to see some Big Ten basketball out of a guy who didn't coach in the Big Ten. That's for sure. When we come back, can George Washington AU repeat the success that they had last season?
This is Marcus Washington from MTC Media Sports. You know all of our coverage. We're from college basketball to the NFL to boxing to Major League Baseball. You name the sport, we cover it. So I get asked the question all the time, where can we get that information? And I always say, follow us on social media. Here is our social media spots. It will point you to all of our information. And look, man, hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that subscribe button on Substack. Give us a little love. We always appreciate all the feedback and support that you give us.
Last season, George Washington finished 21-13 and was 7th in the Atlantic 10. They had a really, really good season, probably the best season they had under Chris Caputo. Now, the cynic would say the Revolutionaries scheduled 21 wins. This season's non-conference schedule is around what you think it will be, but it does have defending champion Florida in the Orange Bowl holiday tournament, however they want to classify that. So they do get a high level game that everyone will be watching, or at least everyone will notice. And it's good to have for George Washington to have a platform like that. Is a great selling point on the recruiting trail. So the roster is solid this season. Might be the best that Caputo has had in his tenure. It does have size, man. It has size, and Rafael Castro, the Providence transfer from a couple years ago, and Northwestern transfer Luke Hunger, who's about 6'10". It's kind of the yin and the yang with that. Castro is your more athletic type of big, can be a rim defender as long as he stays out of foul trouble. And Hunger is more of a space eater. A guy that can eat space in the paint, a guy that maybe needs a little help if you draw him out and you run some Spain action and stuff like that and get him out there. It might be a little different. But the yin and the yang, where Caputo can play around with combos, depending on what type of game it is. So certainly a good situation for George Washington. The guards, Christian Jones, and his defensive talent's always going to be a positive, along with Trey Autry, another year under his belt. They brought in grad transfer Trey Dinkins, that he will provide a lot of experience. And look, in the Atlantic 10, that is an experienced league, guys. Whether those players were there for 3 or 4 years, or whether they got experienced guys out the portal, that is an experienced league. So certainly that is a good look for the Revolutionaries. They also hit the transfer market pretty hard. Boo Boo Benjamin and Tyrone Marshall Jr. They'll join Garrett Johnson on the wing. And again, this goes back to the size thing. Both Benjamin and Marshall Jr. have great wing size. And again, this is putting together a complete roster, a roster with flexibility, a roster that you can play with, a roster that you can throw different styles in. This is what is being built. So you might say, well, Marcus, none of those guys are jumping off of the paper for me, but all together they provide George Washington with a solid roster. Now what they have to do is, for a team that has never kind of done it before, they have to prove that they can do it. Now over at AU, they're coming off an NCAA tournament appearance, and man, I saw their rings. That's up for winning the Patriot League last year. Some nice old rings that they got there. This season will look different, though. It will look different in the sense of AU is going to be a lot younger than in years previous. In Simpkins' 2 years, he was blessed. I'm not saying lucky. I think he was blessed, and part of it was him and his staff. So I want to give them credit on this. When you come in and there's an experienced team there, and this is your first time head coach, and only one person leaves, that's pretty darn good. And for a couple of years, that's what happened over at AU. But those guys have moved on. They've graduated and stuff like that. So it's really building anew. They have some freshmen that should be able to be successful in the Patriot League. Maybe not off the cuff, maybe not against the better teams like Navy, who has a lot of their scoring and production back, or Colgate, who's traditionally very good. But they have some guys who are foundation for the future of the program. And of course, Greg Jones is still there. Preseason Defensive Player of the Year. This year, you will see his offense grow. It grew last year. It'll grow more, and he'll be more of a ball handler also this year. So he's taking on a different role, a bigger role, and it's year 3 for him. And he's ready for that role, and we'll see how effective he can be in that role. But both these teams have something to prove. In GW's case, it's bigger expectations. And in AU's case, is can they navigate the Patriot League as some more of your recruits come in? And we'll see. We will talk George Mason basketball when Full Court DMV returns.
Hey, this is Marcus Washington over here at MTC Media and Communications. I know that you know me from all of my sports coverage, especially college basketball. But MTC Media and Communications is so much more than just sports coverage. We provide UX UI services, content management, data analytics, accessibility, Section 508, website management, content creation, and so much more. So be sure that you hit us up with all of your needs so we can provide you a top-notch service that you deserve.
Last season, Tony Skinn's group was one possession away, literally one possession away from an NCAA tournament bid. A10 finals against VCU. It was one heck of a game. And they were one possession short, and some say they should have gotten it at large. We're not going to delve into that discussion. I have my opinions about that too. But George Mason basically is replacing their entire roster. A lot of these guys, they were out of eligibility. They've moved on. So you only have one starter from last year, Braden O'Connor, that is a starter this year. And that doesn't necessarily mean George Mason is young, because they hit the portal hard. So they brought in a lot of experience. But for me, as I start covering this season and watching George Mason quite a bit, especially in their practices, it's going to be, how do you replace the guys in the inside? They were so good at clogging up the paint. They had great size. They had great length. How do you replace that? So does Dola Adebayo, does he have the motor that he's going to play hard and he's going to be productive on both ends? You know, we all of us love that offense spin, right? But does he have the toughness, the motor, the want to, all of that stuff on the defensive end? Can Riley Allenspot, the transfer from Sanford, big guy, 6'10", can he replace the toughness that was inside the lane when guys drove? Can he be a dominant physical rebounder right off of the board? As soon as it comes off, I'm getting it and I'm getting it out. Can he do those things? He's going to have to do those things in probably more minutes than what he has played in the past. And then off the bench, Nick Ellington will bring some experience. Stas Sivga, trust me, I saw him in the summer. The jump he made from his freshman year to his sophomore year, he certainly can give more. Now, how much is that more? I don't know. We're going to have to see him in live play. Don't know, but he can certainly give more this season, more skilled, worked hard, gotten a little bit bigger, footwork a little bit better. And then, you know, they have the freshmen, Emmanuel Conga and Devin Booker. Of course, not that Devin Booker, but Devin Booker. It'll be interesting to see how much they play. I think Conga could be a high energy guy, maybe in short spurts, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Can do some things, has some athleticism. And Devin Booker, I'm going to tell you, sort of like his namesake, he can shoot the dickens out of the ball. But again, they're young, they're freshmen. So, you know, George Mason might not be first or second in the Atlantic 10 this season, but what they will be is they will be competing by March with this coaching staff. They will be competing for an Atlantic 10 title at the tournament. I have no doubts about that. So thank you for joining me in this first episode. I'm looking forward to doing this all season, where we're kind of putting all the local teams in a wrap, one stop shop. Now, granted, I'm still going to be doing my in-game stuff, especially on when I'm physically there covering the game on site. I'm going to be doing all those things. Those are going to be separate contents. There might be some interviews that end up in this show. That's my plan as we go forward. I do have a ton of interviews that I've posted throughout, because those interviews been posted throughout. I didn't want to recycle one of them, but as the season goes on, you're going to see them in some of these episodes. So thank you for joining me. I appreciate it. Have a good day, and boy, I am so happy that the season is starting today.